Welcome to our Maundy Thursday service, Jesus Walked This Lonesome Valley, a Tenebrae service for Maundy Thursday, written by the Reverend Dr. Margie R. Crawford and presented by our confirmation class and their mentors. Tenebrae is the Latin word for darkness, and this is the night of darkness before the world changed, not only for the disciples, but also for all of us. Jesus had offered the disciples a new covenant. He had blessed the bread and the cup, beginning the journey that would lead to the cross, saving us through his suffering. There are candles before you, 13 of them, to represent Jesus and his 12 disciples. You are now an observer of what the 12 disciples may have experienced on that night after Jesus was taken and they were alone for the first time in years. Our confirmation mentors will serve as the narrators for this presentation, and our confirmation students will take on the roles of the 12 disciples. We hope this service helps all of us as it deepens our understanding as well as our appreciation of Jesus' ultimate sacrifice. And now, Jesus walked this lonesome valley.
Jesus went with his disciples across the Kidron Valley, where there was a garden, which he and his disciples entered. Jesus went off by himself to pray, asking the disciples to keep vigil with him, to stay awake by the fire. Although their spirits were willing, each time Jesus returned to them, he found them asleep. His hour was at hand. And as his trial begins, we go to the Garden of Gethsemane after Jesus has been arrested by the Romans.
I helped the Roman soldiers take Jesus away. I betrayed him with a kiss. They paid me 30 pieces of silver. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought that Jesus would reveal himself as the Messiah when they came for him. I thought that he would strike down the Romans, freeing us from our oppression. I thought that he would reveal himself before the Sapphias, the chief priest, and the other high priests at his trial. He did none of these things. Even when Peter drew his sword and struck the highest priest's slave, cutting off his right ear, Jesus told Peter to put him up his sword. Then Jesus healed the slave's ear and was taken away. I have given our leader over to those who will punish him. How can I possibly return to my brothers, the other disciples? I have shared bread and wine with them for the last time.
Each of the disciples remembers a moment from Jesus' ministry, remembers the way he was changed by his words, his deeds. On this night, they too are left alone, and on each of them wonders what will happen to him, what will happen next.
Oh, the things that he taught us, the things that we heard. I remember Jesus calling people blessed. Blessed are the meek, he said. Blessed are the poor. Blessed are those who mourn. I was blessed from the moment he called me to be with him, and I never realized it. I was blessed as I saw him reach out to those who were hungry, those who were poor, those who were sick, and those who were oppressed. He came, bringing words of hope and joy to so many who needed it. I saw how their lives were changed by his words, how they were transformed before my eyes. Now I am one who is poor. Now I am one who mourns. Now I am one who hungers. Now I need to hear his words just once more. Where do I go from here?
How do you recall, in one night, all the ways that Jesus has touched your life? How do you recall, in one night, all the ways that Jesus touched the lives of others? So many wonders, so many miracles. Why did this son of a carpenter care for so many people?
Our journey was long with many peaks and valleys. No matter where we went, Jesus' reputation went before us. There were times when he had to go to the top of the hill to speak to crowds. Sometimes he had to get into a boat to get out of the lake for a little way so that he would not be overwhelmed. One evening, after he spoke to many and healed many, we continued our journey, and they followed. There were too many people to enter the town. They wouldn't have enough food for so many. We didn't have enough money to feed that so many. Ugh. We only had a few loaves and fishes, enough to feed ourselves. Jesus instructed us to break the bread and fishes and give it to the crowd. There were so many, too many for us to feed without the little we had, and yet every person who reached into the basket and pulled out bread or pulled out fish, there was enough for everyone, and even some left over. I hunger to hear his voice once more, to sit and eat with him. I fear that I will never do either.
As the night passes, each of the disciples is left alone with his thoughts for the first time since Jesus called each one by name. There is no joy on this night, only fear, regret, sorrow, and guilt. Although the disciples heard the words of Jesus, not until now did they begin to understand them.
Our teacher, Jesus, met so many people along the way. We went to places where Gentiles lived. I remember when he met the Syrophoenician woman. She asked him to heal her daughter. At first, he refused. She became angry. She challenged him not for her sake, but for her daughter's behalf. She sought the one she knew who could heal her daughter. Her faith led her to him. And after challenge, Jesus healed her daughter and sent the woman on her way. On our journeys, we traveled to Samaria. Jesus sat down by the well, and one of our ancestors, Jacob, we saw him speaking with the woman who had given him some water. She was so happy. We knew that Jesus had done something for her. He spoke to these women as if they were a part of his community. Who will he embrace as family now? Will he ever return to us?
There was so much that Jesus shared. How could the disciples take it all in? This was the first night of what was to come. This was the beginning of the new way. On this night, they could not realize that their time of darkness would not last forever.
The stories Jesus told us, where could they have come from if not God? They were so full of wisdom, so full of lessons for us, echoing the lessons given to Moses and spoken by the prophets, Jeremiah and Isaiah. They were about the things we had forgotten, the things we stopped hearing from our priests. The time to change our ways has come. We heard how God seeks to bring the lost ones home, like sheep, corns, or a wayward child. and to welcome us with open arms. We learned how we need only to have a little faith, like a mustard seed, and the Lord will help it grow. We learned that goodness is in all people, even if they are Samaritans. We learned that we must keep a vigil, expectantly waiting for God's return. But on this night, I forgot the message of those stories. When they came to arrest Jesus, I did not stand with him, and now I am lost. Who will come and find me?
Jesus performed miracles everywhere he went. Blind people were able to see, deaf people were able to hear, the lame walked, demons were cast out. Many sought out Jesus, not only for themselves, but for someone they loved.
The crowd seemed to grow each day. Yet somehow, that woman reached Jesus and touched the bottom of his robe. He felt the power go out of him. He thought it was the masses of people pressing in on him. But then the woman identified herself. She came forward and thanked Jesus for healing her. She had been hemorrhaging for the past 12 years. She had faith to believe that Jesus alone would heal her. And though there were too many people separating her from him, she somehow was able to touch the hem of his robe and be completely healed. Even a Roman guard and centurion sought Jesus. The centurion spoke of Jesus' authority and recognized his power. He came and asked Jesus to heal his slave. Jesus spoke with him and healed him right then and there. His healing power touched so many. Some we knew by name, others who were complete strangers. I wish I had his healing touch now, for I am sick in my heart.
This is the longest night of their lives. The disciples have scattered like leaves on the wind. It is not known where they have gone. They fear for their lives. They do not want to be arrested. They do not want to testify before the Sanhedrin. They do not want to be brought before Pilate. They do not want to be with Jesus now. Those who witnessed his greatest miracles are unable to be witnesses for him at his trial.
Word came to us that Lazarus, the brother of Martha and Mary, was ill. Although we warned Jesus that the Jews had sought to stone him and that he should not return just then, he decided to go anyway. And so we went with him, fearing for our lives, not knowing what punishment might lie ahead for us. We arrived too late. Martha came out of the village to meet us, to tell us that her brother was gone. Jesus then entered the village and went to Mary. When he saw all those around him weeping for the loss of Lazarus, he also wept. We thought that he would stay and mourn with the family. We thought that he would stand by them, offering what comfort he could. He said, "Take away the stone," he prayed to God, thanking the Lord for hearing him, and then said, "Lazarus, come out." And Lazarus did. I can still remember it like it was yesterday. Who will stand by Jesus now? Who will comfort him? Who will call Jesus out of the arms of those who arrested him?
Jesus taught wherever he went. Time and again he returned to the temple, the center of his faith. It had become a place of iniquity. It was becoming a barrier to the repentance of the Israelites. It needed to be cleansed as the people need to be cleansed.
Day after day, we would listen to him in the temple. And we weren't the only ones there. He recalled the words of the prophet. He brought the law back to life, awakened the law that was in our hearts. He shared with us the words of God and the will of God. He talked of so many things. He brought the stories of our ancestors back to us. He brought the meaning of our conventional relationship with God back to us. Some called him a great teacher. Others called him a prophet of old. He cleansed the temple of the money chargers and all who bought and sold there. He also cleansed our hearts, helping us to remember the Lord's covenant with Abraham, Moses, our deliverer, our greatest king, David, the builder of the first temple. He made the temple a dwelling place for the Lord. Where can we go now? For without Jesus, how can we return to the temple?
As Jesus' popularity grew, some were not comfortable with the message he preached and the words he offered. They did not know what to do with this man. They did not know if they should support him. They were blind to what they saw, deaf to what they heard in his teachings, in his healings, and in his ministry.
Wherever we went, the chief priests and the scribes were there. Some questioned Jesus about the things he said. Some questioned him about the people he healed. Some questioned him about doing work on the Sabbath. Some questioned him about the authority by which he said the things that he said and did the things he did. There were always questions. They seemed to be at every turn. I do not know why. Some watched him, others watched those of us who followed him. Still, others watched the people who came from everywhere, wanting to hear him, wanting to see him, wanting to be healed by him. A few counselors, like Joseph of Arimathea, spoke with him as an equal, respected his wisdom, and called him a rabbi. Which questions are they asking him now? What answers do they expect to hear? What answers will he offer them? Why don't I go with him to face the Pharisees and the Sadducees? What answer would I give them?
Our expectations aren't always fulfilled. The hope of one day can quickly fade. Although the disciples were with Jesus and they heard what he said, they were not given to understand it. They could not read the signs. They were too caught up in the present to see what would transpire in the future.
How did it all happen? When did it all happen? Wasn't it just a few days ago that Jesus sent us to find a colt? Didn't we come into Jerusalem in the midst of cheers, songs, and laughter? Men, women, and children came out to meet him upon the road, waving palms in the air. How the loud hosannas rang in the streets. They called him the son of King David. They called him the prophet of Nazareth in Galilee. He had changed the lives of so many people. People were healed. People were full of hope. We were full of hope. We felt our world was changing, that a new time was coming. The people were with us. The people were with Jesus. And now, no one is with him, not even one of us. We have fled from his side, leaving him alone in his hour of need. What should I do? Where can I go?
As clarity comes, as the disciples begin to believe, they are left to deal with what they didn't do on this night. For a time, they will be overwhelmed by their regret, by their failure. But in time, they remember the significance of Jesus' life. They remember the significance of this night, of the Last Supper, of forgiveness.
Tonight, Jesus spoke of so many things. He spoke of the promise of a kingdom to come. He spoke of a new covenant between our Lord and the people. He spoke of a new commandment of love. My head buzzes as I try to remember all the things he spoke of. Has it only been a few years since he called our names to follow him, so that he could teach others a new way? He spoke to us to share what we had learned, empowering us to speak to the hearts of others wherever we went. What did he say about the kingdom to come? It was about being born anew, about being born of the Spirit. We were to change our ways, to hear the message he shared and to live it. He wanted us to be ready, for no one knew, not even he, when this kingdom would arrive. He tried to prepare us for the suffering that would come, and on this night he must suffer alone. For when they came to arrest him, I didn't have enough courage to go with him.
It is dawn. All the disciples have scattered. They fear that they too will be arrested. They are sorrowful, for Jesus has been taken away. Is it possible he will be taken before the Romans? Is it possible that he will be crucified? The disciples begin to be in their own valley of despair. They do not know what will happen to them. They have forgotten the words given to them in Jesus' teaching, in his preaching. They have forgotten the miracles he has performed. They have forgotten the love he shared. On this night, they have lost themselves, although they have broken bread and drunk from the cup.
Jesus called me the Rock, because when he asked me, "Who do you say that I am?" I answered, "You are the Messiah." Tonight at dinner, after he washed our feet, when he said that one of us would betray him, I swore that I could not. I would not do any such thing. I, in fact, denied that I knew him, not once, not twice, but 3 times. And as he said this, 3 times before the cock crowed, I am no rock. In my fear, I have denied the one I have given up everything to follow. In my ignorance, I have lost all he sought to teach us these past 3 years. I do not know where to go from here. I do not know what will happen. I have failed him. I have failed the other disciples. Oh, if I could only break the bread and drink from the cup with him one more time. But wait, maybe I can. For he said that each time we do it, we should do it in remembrance of him. And so I shall. Every time I do it, I will remember this night, and I will remember we have shared.